Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. It's Tuesday Takes with Tre'Shon Diaz, and I'm also here. I'm Kevin Knight, Alcoholic Kevin. This is Tre'Shon's show now. He gets the title billing, but at Tre'Shon on the Twitters, he's also claimed the OG Tre'Shon on Blue Sky. So I feel dumb, like I should have claimed the OG Kevin Knight on Blue Sky. I'm pretty sure I can't now. It's too popular, but it's fine. It's fine. No one knows my real name. I'm just Falcoholic Kevin anyway. But welcome back to the show, Tre'Shon. Another tough game on Sunday. Other than that, how you doing?
Yeah. Other than that, I'm gearing up for some travel this week because I am heading down to Las Vegas for some reason. For some reason, I decided, you know what, this Vegas game is going to be great. It's going to be easy flight in. It's Las Vegas. They're probably not going to be that good this year. It should be a great one to go see live. And yeah, it's looking like it will now that Desmond Ridder is set to start for that game, which I like, of course, like in October when he signed, I'm like, this ends with me seeing Desmond Ridder live after avoiding seeing him live a year ago. I'm going to be forced to watch him, and I am. So
it felt inevitable, like this whole time. Like as soon as he got traded to a team the Falcons were going to play, I was like, he's going to play. It's like I don't know how it's going to happen, but somehow, some way, we're going to face Desmond Ridder. And, you know, with the way this Falcons offense is playing, I mean, there's a non-zero chance that Kirk turns the ball over like 6 times and Desmond Ridder can somehow win this game. It's pretty close to zero. Let's be fair. You know, I think the Raiders have the number 1 overall pick right now. So this is a team that, you know, certainly is struggling outside of the quarterback position as well. But apparently Aiden O'Connell, it's not a season-ending injury. He, quote, wants to play this weekend. I think we know that that's not going to happen, but, you know, apparently it's not season ending, so good for Aiden O'Connell. But, yes, the Desmond Ridder revenge game is certainly something that wasn't on my 2024 bingo card. But, you know, this season, that's you know, maybe that's the only thing we have left to look forward to at this point.
Yeah.
Given how things have progressed over the last 4 weeks, where in case you've been like in a Castaway style situation, if like the young people even know what that movie is at this point, where you've been on like a deserted, you know, Pacific island for the last month. The Falcons haven't won a football game in 5 weeks and are in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. Punctuated by Kirk Cousins throwing for 0 touchdowns and 9 interceptions now. 8, 9, something like that. A lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. And there haven't really been any meaningful improvements over that span either. In fact, I think they kind of culminated in, they definitely played worse against the Broncos, but this one stung more somehow. Probably because of how competitive this game was all the way up until the start of the fourth quarter, where things just, like they do for this Falcons team, just all fell apart at once, with all 3 phases basically getting in on the failure. And at this point, you know, this Falcons team, they're sinking fast, right? They've lost 4 straight. They have lost the division lead. They are no longer tied for first place. They are behind the Bucs, and it'll take a heroic finish to get even with the Bucs again at this point. So not a lot of optimism surrounding this Falcons team going into what should be the home stretch, where you've got 3 teams that you feel pretty confident you should be able to beat. The Falcons legitimately needed to win 1 of the last 4 games, and that we'd probably be going into this home stretch feeling great about where this team is in terms of winning the division. Maybe not feeling great about how this team is looking, because if they beat the Saints and then lost these last 3, we'd probably feel pretty similar to how we feel now, but at least they would have a pretty comfortable handle on the division. But no, they didn't do that. They lost the Saints game 2, and now they're down to 6-7 after starting 6-3. They blew a 3-game division lead in just 5 weeks. Pretty impressive stuff, honestly, Tre'Shon. This is I think it's a new record for this team.
Yeah, you know, this team loves to redefine their limits in so many fun and new exciting ways when it comes to collapses. And yeah, I think vibes are very bad right now, and they should be. I think that it seems, you know, it's one thing to lose to the Vikings because that is a very, like, I mean, we saw that's a really good football team. That's a really good defense, and so you can kind of live with like just that opponent beating you. But it's hard to live with the mistakes that we keep seeing from the quarterback position. We saw some of issues pop up in the back end of the defense's coverage. And then honestly, for me, this was I think this is a game that I was like the most disappointed in Raheem Morris. And I do not like how he handled um, the post game presser. I've kind of been adamant for weeks with like, hey, like he's not going to throw guys under the bus. Like this is kind of who he is. He's going to approach things much softer than people would like. And you know, when things get rough, that kind of amplifies. But what he did yesterday in the press conference, frankly, was embarrassing. Um, Raheem Raheem has like done a really good job of like trying to manage and like call his lines very carefully. But yesterday, I think frustration really boiled over for him because this is kind of the first time where he kind of walked over his own words. And like I said, frankly, it was just kind of embarrassing when they asked about, you know, what would it take to see Penix, and how do you feel about things going on in the offense, and you know how Kirk's performing. Morris goes ahead and rambles off that Kirk had 300 something passing yards. Um, Morris called a media member out earlier in the season who brought up Kirk's statistics, and Morris told that member that statistics are for losers. And I guess Morris is right because he was up there quoting stats as he was holding his fourth L in a row.
There you go.
And
yeah,
yeah,
and it's no, that's a good place to start. That is. We'll go with that. Before we do, I want to real quick get to the ad read, because I appreciate BetOnline for sponsoring today's episode. As always, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting, from the earliest odds to in-game live betting options. If you would smash that Vikings money line when this game was tied 21-21 at the start of the fourth quarter, it's probably the best odds you're going to get. But typically I don't recommend betting live because live game betting is pretty degen, but we're Falcons fans, so we're all pretty degen here, to be fair. So I can't really judge you on that one. But no matter what you want to bet on, BetOnline's got the largest selection of odds on everything from college football, NFL, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, boxing, MMA. They got it all there. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head to BetOnline today. That website is betonline.ag. And don't forget to use our promo code. It's BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Tre'Shon, well, you mentioned it. The press conference was a tough watch, man. And I think the last couple weeks, we've really started to see the cracks show in the press conferences in particular. And to preface this, there's nothing like you could say that would make it better. So it's really like, it's not like this is an easy situation to navigate. There's not really anything you could say to make it better. There are things you can say to not make it worse. And he's actively stopped doing that over the past few weeks. And, the desperation to coddle Kirk Cousins it's bizarre to me. Like, I could understand it if they were going with Penix and this was Penix going through a rough 4-game patch. Like, just sticking up for your rookie quarterback, being like, look, he's doing enough. We need to be better. Like, I get, like, maybe, like, for rookie quarterbacks, you really do want to protect them. You don't really want them to bear the brunt of that. You want to take on as much of that as you can or redistribute it. Kirk Cousins is 37 years old. He's been in this league for 15 years. He can handle some criticism. He's kind of made it like his thing where he's like taken the criticism and thrown it back in people's faces because he's overcome a lot of this stuff throughout his career. But I don't know why the Falcons head coach is out here like refusing to acknowledge that Kirk Cousins is not only playing the worst football of his career, he's having one of the worst 4-game stretches in NFL history, at least since 2000. I think there's only 3 other quarterbacks that have had a stretch like this in the last 24 years. And I believe 2 of those people were like basically on the final year or close to the final year of their career. I think Brett Favre's like 2005 was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this isn't good company to be in. This is extremely alarming company to be in. And it's like, you don't even have to, like, you don't really have to say much at all. I mean, we talked about it last week. Just say, like, yeah, like, you know, obviously we didn't get the result we wanted. This is not, like, going the way we planned. Kirk knows he has to be better. We know we all have to do a better job. Like, and that's what we're going to be working on, you know, continuing to try to find ways to get out of this rut. Like, that doesn't like make anyone feel better, but it doesn't like piss on anyone's face and tell them while you're telling them it's raining either. And like, just like, it just feels like there's no accountability, or like they're scared to criticize Kirk Cousins. And it's like, does Kirk Cousins have you like held hostage? Like, I know financially he does, but like, it's a weird situation to find yourself in. Like this, like Raheem's in his first season and he's acting like this already. It's just very concerning.
Yeah, it is concerning, and it's the first time that I've really been concerned or even thought about the idea of like Raheem Morris's future, like seriously beyond this year. Those thoughts really have not like trickled into my mind that much at all, because I think up until this point, even though Raheem has been a little bit softer with how he's kind of managed this slide, like publicly and everything, like I still got it to a point. It's like, okay, it's like, yes, like you are a little, you are in a bit of a hostage situation here because of this contract. So like you really need this to work this first year more than anything. So you're trying to give him that support. But when that support starts coming at the detriment of the team in general, that's when you have a problem. And the thing with being like the vibes coach, the guy who's more high spirits and everything like that, and has the coach speak, is you have to be good at taking the temperature of the room. And that goes back to your point where you're like, hey, you can't talk your way out of a 4-game losing. There's nothing you can say in that room that's going to make people be happy about losing 4 games. It just simply does not matter. And there's tons of things you can say, though, to make it worse. And Morris kind of like pulled out as many as he could. It felt like he was going through there saying that he thought Kirk did enough to win and that the people and everybody around him didn't do enough to win. I thought that was a wild statement to make. And again, it just we've seen Morris kind of do that before, where he says Kirk's carried this team to wins. And if you've watched this team this year, you know what Bijan's done for this offense. You know what other players have done for this offense. So again, just kind of like a statement that does not do anything but serve to divide players. Because why are you even comparing them in that way? That you don't do that. And so his approach now at this point is going to be under scrutiny. And you see it today. People are very upset because the quarterback is being managed like a toddler. Zach Robinson's been called out after good games. He was called out yesterday. They talk about the offense red zone execution. They talk about tons of things. The pass rush has been directly called out. They were called out before the bye. Raheem Morris said flat out, job's not getting done. It's not good enough. Things have to change. We're going to work on it. That's the same statement you have to make for Kirk at this point. There is no Kirk's done enough. Kirk's doing his best. That's like, man, that's over. At this point, it's Kirk's not doing enough on his end to get the job done. And others aren't either, but Kirk is a part of that. And it's one of the big reasons we're losing games. Like, it's like the man has not thrown a touchdown in 4 games. Like, I just don't understand that approach to that presser. And that stinks because I hate talking about pressers. And we hate talking about pressers because it's not the game. But this is where we are now.
Yeah. It just, it the whole thing is disappointing, obviously, but you don't like these unforced errors, like these press conferences. It's just so unnecessary. On top of everything else to go down this path, like it's this type of stuff is what you see from like dysfunctional staffs and organizations, and the fact that we're starting to get it is very concerning. Because like honestly, like Raheem really shouldn't be like fearing for his job or anything at this point. Like I don't think there's any reason to suspect that even if they were to lose out, that blank would make a change after one season. It's just not his thing. Um, so it's like I don't know. I just the desire to just coddle Kirk and like also like resounding vote of confidence today from Raheem Morris on Kirk Cousins as of just moments ago. Kirk is our quarterback and he's going to lead us. That's what he said. So, they will not be benching him as expected. I'm not sure, if there's anything he could do to be benched at this point. It seems like they're committed to playing this out with Cousins. And again, like to me, like this is where I think a coach could have made a bold decision to go with somebody else, and show that there's accountability. Like, look, like our quarterback has lost us at least 2 of the last 4 games kind of by himself. And the other 2 he didn't help in. And we just invested an absurdly high draft pick in a quarterback. Like maybe we should and maybe we should see what this new guys got. But no, they're going to stick with Kirk Cousins, presumably for a number of reasons, right? I think there's probably an enormous amount of pressure, obviously, to prove that they were right to have signed him in the first place. That's kind of just human nature. I think at the end of the day, I think the only smart angle to this is that they're desperately trying to gin up any sort of trade value for Kirk Cousins, because there's a non-zero chance that he could finish on a tear going up against these defenses. The Raiders defense, which has Max Crosby, and that's it. And then and that's it. And the Giants defense, the Giants are actively tanking. The Panthers defense, which has been better of late, but is still like a bottom 5 NFL defense. And the Commanders defense, which that's not the reason that team has a winning record. Like the Commanders defense is very mediocre. So, I guess if you're like desperately trying to rehab his trade value so you can try to move on this offseason, like you're not even trying to get a good pick. You're just trying to convince someone to trade for him to get him off your books. And like a lot of people will say that's impossible. No one would do that. Have you seen the rest of the NFL? Okay, there's a lot of bad organizations out there.
Like look at the Raiders.
Yeah, so the Raiders, for example,
this could be a showcase day.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not impossible, but I just think that it's not worth it. Like I would rather give Penix the experience. Also give Penix some sort of evaluation, because we need to know if he can be the guy next year, right? Like, do you really want to go into next year with Kirk Cousins playing terribly and basically like a handful of drives to evaluate Penix on? I guess they're comfortable with that. I think this is just another sign that like Morris is losing his conviction. I mean, you think back, like you mentioned it, I think on a previous show, like he did make the decision to pull the veteran high-paid quarterback and go with the rookie to try to save their season. And it worked. And then this time around, the same situation is presenting itself. And instead, the decision is to not make a change, not roll with the young quarterback. And I just don't think it bodes well for Raheem's coaching tenure here. that we're not really getting any bold action. This is going to not be a coaching staff that's willing to make these types of decisions. They're just going to go with the flow. And the flow's not working. So, I mean, I think we know how this ends. Probably 2-2, maybe 3-1 if they're lucky. And not being close to the playoffs once again.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's like 3-1's definitely on the table. And like you said earlier, 4-0 is on the table. Like, and maybe that's the hope. That my other fear is that they're going to see that 4-0 streak and say, "Yep, Kirk's good for 2025." So, like, getting into the mind of Terry Fontenot is a very terrifying thing to do. So, like, when we just kind of look at everything that's happening off the field, and then we marry it with what we saw on the field yesterday, it is very clear that there is a coaching issue with this team. Record or season high penalty yardage. The refs in that game, horrific. So some good amount of those yards are whatever you want to make out of it. But Falcons definitely earned their fair share of calls. The fourth down sequence, you get a penalty. You go from 4th and 7, you accept the penalty after you punted. So then you go up to 4-2, you're at midfield. You're in a spot where you've gone for it on 4th down multiple times this year. You sit it out and do the delay of game, and then you make your kicking team kick again. First of all, special teams coaches hate that. Special teams coaches never want to re-kick.
Pinion had a great punt. I was literally writing up a tweet like, wow, he got that thing almost down inside the 10. That was a great punt, plenty of hang time, no return. And then it's like, nope, I got to delete. So that's what I was most mad about. I had to delete my tweet.
So, yeah, like you then go through the whole, and then you punt again. And so like, I'm like, were you sitting there thinking like you were going to trick them into the delay of game? And it's like, nobody bites on that snap. And we did see the Falcons bite on that snap in this game, of course. But nobody takes that cheese, when it's laid out in the trap. Morris just kind of like, it's really questionable. You see them like not go, like who knows what's going on with Koo in the kicking situation right now. They released Patterson, but then they were too scared to kick a 50-yarder and didn't. So like you see all these inconsistencies. You see all of these issues in terms of execution and whatnot. And it just all goes back to the head coach. And this is a team, and you and I have talked about this like every week. They are undisciplined. Like even when they win, even when they're doing good, this is a sloppy football team. This was like a trademark of Dan Quinn's football teams that Raheem Morris was here for. It was like a trademark of Raheem Morris's interim head coach team. And I got to say, this looks and is operating a lot like the interim tenure of Raheem Morris's like little head coach stint here. And he did not get that job because of how that tenure went, in my opinion. Like when we saw some of those embarrassing collapses, when you see some of the like extremely questionable decision-making, it's like kind of all coming back to me now. And I'm like, oh man, this is just not, it's like you said, it's like the vibes are not good right now. And I'm trying to not let them like snowball on me, but it's just like, you have this feeling and it's very familiar. And you're just like, this is not a good place to be.
Yeah, it's very concerning. Like this team had conviction earlier in the year, and it didn't always work. I mean, it didn't always work. But they were aggressive, and like they had that identity, and I respected it. And even when they didn't get it, sometimes I was like, I still think it was the right call. Like they should have gone for this. Like, I mean, we didn't always like the play calls, but they it seemed like they were pretty much, at least the first like 8 games of the year, they were pretty much always making the right calls to go for it or not. And like it feels like especially since the bye week, but even like in this, we'll say during this losing streak, it's like they've become cowards. Like like I mean, maybe I'm sure some of it has to do with a lack of trust in Younghoe Koo, which that's its own problem. But it's like in this game, you take a 4th and 5. Which is like, that was probably a questionable go for it scenario. This is like the kick you're, I think, talking about. That's a questionable go for it decision considering it's a 50-yard field goal. And if you can't expect your kicker to hit that 50-yard field
Inside?
goal inside, that means Koo's getting cut. Like if they feel like that,
What?
then Koo's getting cut at the end of the year. That's just the way it is. So hopefully they don't feel that way. But you're willing to roll the dice and go for it on 4th and 5. Okay, that's pretty aggressive. But it's consistent with how they've been, right? They typically like to push the limits there. And then you go down, like not very far after that, to the 2-yard line, and you kick it. And it's like, what the hell are we? Who is this? Who is this?
I thought Quinn was back in the stadium, man. That was like the most Dan Quinn thing ever. Like those field goals, like that's what he used to get. People just used to like harass him over that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's so cowardly, man. It's like, what? Like, are you even trying to win this game, or like are you just trying not to lose? Because trying not to lose is going to lose you every game. You have to try to win, especially when you're a big underdog. Like you're a 6-point underdog against this Vikings team. You got to go get touchdowns at every opportunity. That field goal is not going to help you. And lo and behold, you get blown out by 21 points at the end of the game. But it's just, I don't know, man. It's just the reluctance to make any changes, this like really passive sort of attitude that they've seemed to have. Like, I mean, going into the bye, it sounded like they were willing to make some more changes, and like defensively, they've adjusted some, and some of those changes I think have been good. I think most of the changes have been good. I think this week they were playing more aggressive coverage, and it didn't work out. I still think overall that's probably the better call than playing that's more conservative coverage that they've been doing, because I think that they have to send extra rushers, and if you send extra rushers and you play soft coverage behind it, there's just a huge hole, and there's just a huge hole somewhere. So they're kind of matching this like aggressive coverage with this aggressive rushing, and I think it like early in the game it was working. Like they were really getting on top of these guys, and it ended up not working late. But I don't get like what's going on here. Like it doesn't seem like there's enough going on with this team. It feels like they've just kind of sleptwalked through this 4-game losing streak. It's just so bizarre to me. Like I would think for a team that was in like 6-3, there'd be more like fire and energy around getting this turned around, because you feel like you're a division leading team and you should be playing playoff caliber football and all this. Instead, it's like they lost 4 games with like a whimper. It feels like it's just like, oh, well, we'll get better next week. Oh, we got some things to clean up. Yeah, we'll get better next week. And it's like, oh yeah, 4 games later, we've lost our lead and we now have a losing record. And it's like, yeah, could we have like maybe taken this a little bit more seriously like during this losing streak? Could we see some fire from somebody that doesn't involve getting mad at the media for quoting stats, or like, like that's not the type of fire we're asking for. We're not the ones causing you to lose games. So if only we had that power, if only, but
yeah. And it is frustrating because it feels like because of this approach, we are seeing now, like, especially like Zach Robinson coming under fire, like pretty heavily. It's like a lot of people are starting to be more and more upset with what they're seeing from him. I really don't understand like that to the degree that we're starting to see it now. And then, even like with Jimmy, we all had to have patience for a while, but like to your point, we've seen now like pass rush is getting better and things like that. And so when we look at like how things unfolded yesterday, and Morris talked about like red zone, and that's like an area that he's talked about a lot. And Falcons in the red zone yesterday, like first drive, dialed up some great plays. They ended up having to go for it on 4th down because there was, in my opinion, sloppy execution from the receivers running the routes out of the 3-by-1 concept before you get to the Algier touchdown after the 4th down conversion. And like London is a little messy with his route. They're running levels, which is great. We asked to see more of that. So they're running routes to the middle of the field to help Kirk. And Kirk's waiting for London to peel open. He's just not able to. And, he has to dump it off to Ray, who's able to make a little catch, gain a couple of yards, and then we've got to go for it on fourth down now. And then the Algier play was great. That's a concept that he stole from the Packers. The Packers have been running, it's called the spinner split zone. That's when you saw Warner go across, turn around real quickly, and then they snap the ball and he comes back the other way with all of his momentum. Packers have been running that against teams. They had some success running against many. We ran it, looks great. And you see other plays where there are opportunities in the red zone, but somebody's not executing. But the common denominator, the person that's not executing consistently is Kirk. He misses a wide open Kyle Pitts for a touchdown. Who, yes, I know. I'll just beat
Pitts
you to
did not
it
have a great game.
Pitts would have dropped it anyways.
Yeah. Pitts did not have a great game. Okay,
Pitts had a bad game, and it's unfortunate because he had a bad game as a receiver. I think he had one of his best games as a blocker.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really notice it live, but when you go back and look, Pitts was handling Van Ginkel and Turner and did a really good job. And I'm glad that Zach Robinson went back to him and said, we're getting Dwelly out of here, less Dwelly, more you on these blocks. And it worked. It was great. But, other people are failing, yes, but the consistent factor throughout these 4 games is Kirk. And we're not seeing, again, good execution. That does go back to coaching. That goes back to details, and route running at times this year has been a little sloppy. Guys have kind of just gotten away with it because Drake London's bigger than most of the people out there, and he just boxes a lot of guys out. But in the red zone is where the sloppiness shows up. The field is shrunk. Every single yard matters. Where you do your break matters. And we don't look like a very disciplined team just in terms of basic execution in that area. But when you look at the first drive, it's night and day on that Tyler Algier touchdown. Guys firing off the ball, everything's clean. So it is, to a point about coaching, but players have to play. Guys have to execute. You can't run the route for the guy. I can't sit here and possibly think that the coaching staff is not saying the things that we're talking about to the players at times. That's we're good. We're not that good. We're not finding things that they're missing. You know what I mean? So at a certain point, it's Kirk, you got to hit that ball. You got to hit that man. Pitts wide open in the middle of the field. There's just nothing but green grass. That was the most Desmond Ridder throw ever. It looked like every deep throw because ball's supposed to be in the middle, sails over to the back right. And you just can't overcome some of the growing pains we're seeing from Zach Robinson when your quarterback is playing the 20th or worst best quarterback in the league simultaneously.
Yeah. It is, I think, it seems that for Cousins in the red zone, there's a lot of tipped passes. There's a lot of missed reads. I don't know exactly what's going on with that. But it's just he's not executing well in the red zone, and that kind of limits their options. I also think they haven't really been able to generate a great red zone role for Darnell Mooney. Mooney's been great everywhere else. Yeah. So it's maybe he's just your between the 20s dynamo, and that's fine. You need guys for that, but they really haven't drawn up anything successful for him in the red zone, which he's a good route runner. He's quick. I think you can draw up some plays to take advantage of that, but they really haven't done that. And that might just be some of the limitations of Zach Robinson as a first year play caller. He's not necessarily red zone offense is hard. It's the hardest offense there is. So it may be one of those things he's going to have to learn and develop that as he goes along. But you see guys open that Kirk just doesn't hit for one reason or another. He has his passes batted. He gets a little bit of pressure, has to move off his spot slightly, and then the pass is errant. He makes bad decisions. It's just the red zone is just it feels very limited, and it feels like that's a big part of what's holding this offense back. But I think that's a lot of it is Kirk, right? And you mentioned it one of the picks, there's a free rusher coming, and Kirk sees that Pitts, like, he's open. He just airmails it. Like, he airmails it directly to the cornerback where there's no chance of Pitts having a chance to catch it. And it's like, I get that's a high pressure throw. Like, that you have, 1 second to make this throw before you get clobbered. But this is what you expect from your $40 million a year quarterback. Like, this is the play you expect him to make. This is not some, third round rookie. I guess maybe that's a Desmond Ridder dig. I don't know. That wasn't intentional. But, like, this isn't that where you're like, oh, well, that's a lot to ask that quarterback to make that throw. No, you expect Kirk to stand in there and deliver a catchable ball to Kyle Pitts. If he puts that ball, like, on the right trajectory, Kyle Pitts just walks into the end zone for a touchdown. He's basically,
God willing, he catches it.
Yeah, God willing, he catches it, right? So 50% chance. But he seems to actually catch those, like, deep shots like that all the time. It's like the crossers that he has trouble catching for some reason. But it's like, you just put that on the money and that's a touchdown, right? And he doesn't put it on the money. And that's kind of been the theme of Kirk Cousins the last 4 weeks is bad decisions. And when he makes good decisions, the accuracy's not there. Like, I mean, that was, like, last week, the biggest concern was, like, even when he was completing passes, guys were having to go down to the ground to get stuff. There was an incompletion to Darnell Mooney where that ball was basically thrown to the turf that could have been a touchdown.
Another red zone miss.
Yes. And it's like, this isn't the play caller not calling good red zone plays. This isn't the receivers not making catches. This is the quarterback not executing. And I just, like, there's no good excuses for the way Kirk Cousins has looked. Like, it boggles the mind. Like, he doesn't, and there's, like, I mean, there was one play. It's funny because he actually did have a scramble in this game, but I think there was one red zone play where, like, a quarterback who could, like, move off his spot even a little bit would have been able to easily avoid the sack and get this ball off. But Kirk, like, the rusher gets, like, a hand on him and it, like, throws him off, and it's like, oh, game over. And the rusher, like, is able to recover from the block and just come back around and get the sack. And it's like, any other quarterback could escape that and get that ball off for a first down, but Kirk Cousins can't. So he's already very limited physically. We knew that going in, but now he's not delivering good decision-making. He's rarely processing anything. Like, this was the first time in weeks that I think we actually saw him make, like, a high-level quarterback play where he, like, looked off the linebacker to be, like, he just looked over at Bijan and the linebacker bit on it, and then he immediately moved back over to Ray, who was then wide open for a big gain. That's the first time I've seen him do something like that in weeks. And this should be a regular thing for Kirk Cousins. This is his bread and butter. This is a 15-year veteran starting quarterback. You should expect these plays to happen with regularity. It's been weeks since we've seen him actually make a high-level play like that. And I think, to me, it's like, if he's not giving you that, why are you willing to deal with all of his limitations if he's not giving you the high-level plays that you're expecting him to make? Like, maybe he can't move. Maybe he can't throw with a ton of velocity. But if he makes good decisions, if he processes well, and if he throws with accuracy, then you can build an offense out of that. But he's not doing any of those things now. It's all so inconsistent that it's like almost impossible to build a functional offense around a quarterback that's this inconsistent.
Yeah, and, like, let's be, like, clear. The offensive line and, like, the pass protection balled out yesterday.
That was, like, the best game of the year for the offensive line.
It's, like, not even being talked about, and we've even seen people, like, mentioning the O-line. The only sack that happened was when Bijan Robinson was fighting for his life, and Kirk was just staring at it because he doesn't move. Like you said, he's just kind of watching it, and he's like, it'd probably be easier if I just stay here. And we see Cousins get sacked. Outside of that, 1 sack, 9 pressures. This is a team that averages like 18 pressures a game. The Falcons halved their average. They get about 2.9, about 3 sacks a game. 1 sack with the quarterback that we've described to you as one of the least mobile in the game right now. So the pass protection did their job. And Zach Robinson actually implemented a, like, big max protect package this week that I think mostly went unnoticed, where he had a lot of 7-man and even some of the dreaded 8-man protections, which lead to those 2-man route concepts, which Kirk threw an interception on because he simply wanted to throw an interception. If you go back and look at that play, it's first down. It's play action too, by the way. Kirk just stares at London. He goes like this, and he goes, "Oh no, he's totally covered." And he goes,
Oh, is that just for Tellus? No, it's not.
You know what?
Nah.
Try it anyways.
He was
Throw it away, man.
He was getting Vikings flashbacks, and he was like, "Purple jersey, that's my guy." Yeah.
Like, it's first down. It's 7-7, and for somebody that brought up that it was 21-21 when they had the ball, and then like next time they got it, it was whatever. Yeah, it was 7-7 when you threw a pick and they were driving. The offense was driving on the defense. Probably would have been nice if the defense didn't have to, like, I don't know, work with a short field and then prevent Justin Jefferson and the boys from doing what they do. Probably be nice if there was, like, more consistent quarterback play for them as well. But, like, there's a reason we haven't heard the defense say anything like that in a presser, because it's wild to say anything like that in a presser, regardless of whether you're throwing them, Ray, whoever, under the bus for a turnover. You? Like, what? So you had the O-line do their job, and we're not here to say Zach Robinson does not have limitations. We've actually both been very consistent in that this is a first-year play caller. You're going to have growing pains. Like, it's not always going to be easy and feel comfortable. And like, he's struggling where they almost all do, and that's off script and in the red zone. The Falcons, like, opening scripted, like 14 to 20 plays, whatever you want to call them, they're money, man. Like, there's a reason we get so frustrated, because this team always seems to open up hot and it usually gets killed by a penalty, or we don't see the heat come back. And it was just like one really impressive drive, and then they struggle throughout the game. Falcons have had, like, 500 something. They were moving the ball fine. Like, they're between the 20 merchants, if you want to call it something like that. But they do enough to get a above average quarterback in a position to be able to make plays. And if you want to know what that looks like, go look at, like, all but one of the touchdowns from Sam Darnold yesterday. Sam Darnold showed you what mobility can do when a play is covered. He can show you what mobility can do when there's a blitz and you can just hold on to the ball with a little bit of extra time. Those coverage busts happened when pass protection busts happen. So our secondary wasn't the only one that failed or lost on the play, if you want to call it like that. The Minnesota Vikings protection failed them most of the time. And at that point, it's who's going to be the better athlete. Sam Darnold was the better athlete yesterday. And, like, hats off to him. Like, that guys, he's playing out of his mind. And I also think, like, how good his game was is also being drowned out from, like, how bad Kirk was nationally, because, like, when I went back and, like, just looked at what he was doing yesterday, like, he was doing a lot of, like, I mean, making nasty throws. Like, this is the guy everybody's, like, told us, about since he was drafted. And so you can't scheme everything perfectly. It's football. There's going to be scramble drills. There's going to be breakdowns. And you have to be able to overcome those situations. And the Falcons have a quarterback who has not been able to overcome bad execution. And they shouldn't be expected to every time, but you should be able to do it every once in a while when you're paid as well as you are. And Cousins could have rectified that by not rushing the throw to Pitts, taking that hit from the free rusher and getting a touchdown. But we don't see that. And we see him throw a dirt ball to Mooney, and we see all these other things. And it's just kind of like, man, this guy has to have every single thing be absolutely perfect in order for him to win. And that's just not how football works. No play is perfect.
Yes. And, Cousins, like, I think this is part of the reason why he's going to start for the rest of the season. In between this stuff, he can, like, deliver the football, right? We saw it. Like, I mean, it was a very slow deep ball to Mooney, but it was a very well-placed deep ball. Like, it was a great moon ball. right over the coverage, right to Mooney. So like, I'm not like criticizing. Like, you can absolutely throw deep balls like that. That's fine. Like he was able over the middle. I thought he looked a lot better throwing over the middle than he did throwing at the sideline. And that's been consistent all year. But this week it seemed like, just if he could plant his feet and hit that thing over the middle, he's still got plenty of velocity on those throws. The outside throws are still not great, but it wasn't as bad this week in that department. But the issues are like exactly what you mentioned, which is like, you can't expect perfection from your team. Like, you can't expect to get clean snaps every time. Like, maybe 50% of your snaps you'll get clean like snaps. If you're a great offense, maybe 75%, right? Everyone's executing at a super high level. But like, frequently the defense is going to win. Like, they're going to beat somebody. There's going to be a free rusher. There's going to be a protection breakdown. Someone's going to fall down on their route. Shit happens. That's part of why football's so compelling, because shit happens all the time. It's exciting. And if something goes wrong, Kirk Cousins doesn't have a backup plan. Like, he's not going through his progressions right now, which is bizarre because he's typically been pretty good at that. We've seen him do it a handful of times with success, but not consistently. He's not seeing the field well, even when he is going through his progressions. I'm sure London was his number one read on that interception. He looked right at him, and even like pumped it. So it's like, he hesitated. Like it's just like I don't understand. Like, I mean, maybe I thought when he pumped that he was trying to look people off towards London, and I was like, oh, well, that's smart. Like, no, and then he just let it go anyway. Like, I just like, he's not seeing it either. So he's like, he can't recover when a play breaks down. He's not seeing the field well. He's not going through his progressions, and his accuracy is kind of scattershot if the ball's not thrown over the middle. And we even saw a couple times today when it was thrown over the middle, he still wasn't able to get the ball out where it needed to go. So I just like, I get that he's giving you passing yardage because that's important. But like, what the hell else is he getting you? He's not getting you into the end zone. Your running game's getting you in your, like, we could keep like, before we end, we have to like heap praise on the run game, because I had no faith in the run game having any success against this Vikings run defense. This is the best run defense in the league, arguably.
Another reason why the Robinson talk is like really funny.
Yeah. So we'll get to that, but we can finish up on Kirk first. But it's just like empty yards. It's like, he's hitting some big plays here and there, but there's no consistency. When they get down to the red zone, he lacks the it's like he lacks the conviction in the red zone. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's not like just one thing, but it's like, he can't run. Like, even immobile quarterbacks frequently get a couple of rushing touchdowns a year just because a lane will open up and they can just scurry in, He can't. Now, he did have an 11-yard scramble called back, where he had probably the largest like lane to run through that you'll ever see. And the Vikings looked shocked that he even attempted to run, which, I mean, that'll happen with him. But like, he can't run at all, like even like as a little scramble. So that eliminates that option from your playbook. And that's another reason, like, if something breaks down, he really doesn't have any answers. He's not processing quickly or effectively. And in the red zone, like, you have to be a quick processor. Unless it's like first read and go, like, you have to be able to check quickly and be able to read your keys and get to the right target. And like, he can't extend plays. He can't. So like, in the red zone, that's nice too. Like, if you can avoid the pressure a little bit and then roll out or step back or step up in the pocket until somebody comes open, like, that would have resulted in several more touchdowns, I'm sure, because a lot of times when Kirk throws these picks, he's like, oh, I got to get rid of this ball because I can't escape the pocket. And then he throws a pick when, if he had one more second, Drake London's coming open, or Kyle Pitts is coming open, or, so-and-so's coming open. And it's just it's like, I don't get the Zach Robinson criticism to that extent. Like, yes, like, Robinson, he's a first-year OC. Like, he's got his weaknesses. He does have this screen obsession. And you
Man, when
know,
that last one worked, I was like, "Oh,
oh
come
no,
on!"
no, this
Like
is
that
never gonna go
sick
away
man is
now.
up there just thinking about the next
It's
one he
like
can call,
I
and
knew
everyone's
it.
like,
I
"Oh
knew it
shit!"
was gonna work. I believed. But like
Oh,
we've seen growth from Zach Robinson, and like honestly, I think you have to take things into total consideration, right? Including how do you design an offense for a quarterback who struggles to throw outside with great touch and velocity, who isn't seeing the field particularly well, who can't move, can barely execute play action, and when he does, his mechanics look really sloppy afterwards. Like, is making bad decisions with the football. It, like, how do you call an offense for that? Like, and then every like third play, he'll unleash like a 25-yard completion that looks great, and it's just like that. Like, it's like you get. I think Raheem has like been snookered in by those plays, and it's like, well, like Kirk Cousins is not the only quarterback that can complete plays to open receivers over the middle of the field. Like, and that's I think a lot of this is Zach Robinson is scheming guys open. He is
yeah.
presenting easy opportunities for Kirk to hit his first and second read and not require this processing. But I guess it's like why should we believe that Kirk is operating this offense better than Michael Penix would? Like, I get everyone's like, oh well, he's a rookie, so he can't possibly do anything. How many rookie quarterbacks are playing excellent football this year? 3, 4. Like, so why do we think Penix is the only one that can't operate an offense? Like, it's like the opposite of grass is always greener. It's like, well, we don't want to get any worse than Kirk Cousins. And I think what we were starting to argue last week, it was like, I mean, is it possible to be worse? Like, I mean, yes, the answer is yes, but like I don't think we should expect Penix to be worse than Kirk Cousins because of how many limitations there have to be on this offense with Kirk back there. And maybe this is all a folly because it doesn't seem like Kirk is going to be benched. Probably not this year, but I just don't know how you work around his limitations at this point and put together an offense with any sort of consistency.
Yeah, well said. I think if anyone should have been upset about the offense not getting the ball back until it was 21-35, it should have been Zach Robinson, because now he is throwing his hands up in the air and he's like, great, I have to abandon the run and we have to win this game with Kirk's arm. That's been a losing formula in every game outside of Tampa. So,
Philly.
I mean, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, he's probably up in the booth like, you gosh, you're killing me. And there's no way there's no way you can overcome some of the things you're seeing from your quarterback. And like you said, the Falcons running game and running attack yesterday was great. Like, we saw them do some new things. Excited to see them build off of those. I do wish they had a little bit more ready in terms of building off of looks and formations that we saw. We'll talk about that pistol look with both running backs on the field and everything like that. And under center, because I think they did it both ways. But yeah, it's just, you know, your quarterback is working against you right now, and you're doing as much as you can. And when it's your first year on the job, you're trying. I'm sure the relationship at first is sold as like, hey man, like this is like a second coach for you with having Kirk. This is great. This is blah blah blah. And it is just not really panning out, I think, to really work that way. And now at this point, Robinson is really like having to figure out what can he get Kirk and what can he ask of Kirk. And I think we're going to see moving forward more of the middle of the field. And that's something like I've been really wanting to see. It's something that we have talked about, being like, hey, like these outbreaking routes, that arm looks tired. Let's start bringing some stuff in and across the field. And I think we saw for the first time yesterday, like a legitimate uptick in like trying to target the middle of the field or giving Kirk options over the middle. But yeah, let's talk about this run game. Let's talk about all gears showing up. Bijan, where do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, I was sure that they wouldn't be able to run the ball. I mean, this Vikings defense is so good at shutting down the outside zone. Like they're great at it. And we saw it early in the game when they really were still trying a lot of outside zone that they were doing well to start things off. But they just they finally started to be like, maybe we should just run this damn thing inside. Like maybe we should just run this damn ball inside more. And well, lo and behold, they did, and they ran it really well. And it's like, yes, thank you. Like this is exactly what we were asking for because you have a great, especially with Dahlman back. Like this is a great rushing interior. Three of your, two of your best offensive linemen are in the interior, and I think this was one of Bergeron's best games as well. Like they were gashing this Vikings defense. No one does that to this Vikings run defense. It's really impressive. And I really liked how they were changing up the two. It was clearly still like Bijan's show. I think Bijan ended up playing like 80% of the snaps, but they like cleverly worked in Algier when it made sense. Like Algier took a number of carries. They kept Bijan fresher. I think they cleverly used like Algier on those like fullback plays. That was a beautiful play with kind of the direct fullback. I think you called it. I don't know if that was the spinner motion you were talking about on that.
No, that was on the touchdown.
Yeah. They had that like fullback dive where they just handed it straight to Algier, and it's like, yeah, if you're gonna use like a runner as your fullback, then you should use the fullback dive a lot more because it's one of your best runners, and it's a great short yardage play because the distance between the line and the fullback is a lot shorter than the distance between the line and the running back, and you just punch it right in, and the defense is not used to defending it.
He just wants to run one line.
He just wants to go straight ahead, and he's great at it. Man, that one run, like you could feel that hit. Oh, his mouth. I don't know if it was his mouthpiece or a piece of his like pads or something flying, and it's like bam, and then Algier just like calmly walks away and just like keeps like and then gets like 10 yards on it. It's like, oh yes, and it's like this should be like as good of a running back duo as like Montgomery and Gibbs. Like there's no reason this shouldn't be as good of a duo as that. I just think the Lions are more committed to the inside runs. And obviously the Lions have arguably the best offensive line in football. The Falcons, I think, could claim to have a top 10 offensive line without question. And maybe it will, I think if Bergeron continues to grow, you're talking about it getting even better. But yeah, that run game just like that gives you so much hope because that was the one thing. It was like they're just not consistent running the ball. They're really insistent on the outside zone. They're not going to be able to do that against the Vikings. But like, and you saw like when they started to run more inside, then the Vikings couldn't just sit outside anymore. And then they were able to run the outside zone more effectively. It's almost like if you keep the defense guessing, it helps make everything more efficient because they have to actually sit back there and watch the play instead of just charging outside the second they see the handoff, So yeah, just 2 thumbs up there. This is probably their most impressive rushing day of the season, given the opponent.
Yeah. Like the Panthers game, like means nothing to me. Like, which was I think like their best great day on the ground, like previously in terms of like total yardage. This was like a real test, and yeah, man, like Zach really came like ready, and it starts, I think, like with your power guys, like setting that tone. I agree with you. I really liked the usage of Algier. I liked that they went to it early. Like a lot of like the thinking is usually like, oh, use Algier, beat them up at the end and everything like that. In my mind, I'm like, no, I want to see Algier put hits on people like that early. I want people already second guessing, and then you get Bijan running at the end, and he'll beat you up, and it's just as effective as having Tyler do that same kind of work. And they needed to manage Bijan's snaps because they knew he was going to be like the key piece in pass protection this week. And the Bijan's got to be like the O-line has to love him. Like I'm not saying they don't love Algier. I'm sure they do, and we know they do. But like Bijan has really like become an extra lineman for them in pass protection, and he is like destroying guys. He's helping lay chips down with them. Like he's doing everything he can, and then we see him get rewarded and reward everybody when he gets the ball handed to him, and he just does what he does best, and that's just go make a play. And I agree with you. I think the inside rushing, which is something that we're like, hey guys, this is like, it complements your outside runs, complementary football. Oh, wait, we've got something cooking here. Like you said, you start throwing up a change and people don't really know what to do, how to react, slows everything down. And it worked. I think the fullback looks with Algier, super smart. We've Algier struggled blocking. And like that's fine. He's not a fullback. That's like not he was not like, here to do that job. So yeah, I'm with you. Like utilize him in those short yardage situations, shorten the distance, let him just get ahead of steam, just fire off the ball and go get 1 yard. And like that's really great. And like a lot of people online, they ran it a second time, worked again, great. And then after that, everybody, well, why didn't they run it again? Why didn't they run it again? I'm like, you're making your own wide receiver screenplay right now. Mm-hmm. You can't just keep spamming it. And that's when I was talking about saying, like, I wish they'd come with that look. And they fake it to Algier, pitch to Bijan, fake it to Algier, throw it to Bijan, fake it, do whatever. Like building off of these looks and building off of the looks that already exist. That's like where I think Zach really needs to take a bigger step, is being able to change, being able to run multiple plays out of the same formation. He's great at running things out of like 11, doubles, trips. He's got a lot of things down there, but like it gets predictable. Like you keep hearing people talk about the predictability of things, and like I think that they were actually far less predictable in the run game this week, and like they made a lot of strides in the passing department. It's just really, them, like we keep saying, like broken record, it just comes down to execution most of the time. The plays themselves aren't terrible. So I think with the run game operating like this, and then like you said earlier, you're about to go in and play some of these defenses. You might not even need Kirk to go off. Like you might be able to get away with Kirk only having like 1 touchdown, no interceptions, barely 200 yards passing. Like that's probably, the best formula at this point towards getting a win in these final 4 games.
Yeah, exactly. And it like build what you're describing, like with this stuff with the building stuff off and these more advanced, concepts and really playing into like the game within the game. That's something that like hopefully, like if Zach becomes the guy that we're hoping he will become, that should be something that he grows into, and we start to see more of that. And I think that what he's given us so far is very hopeful. And there's like a dark part of me that's like, man, if like Raheem like doesn't get this thing going, like maybe we should just make Zach Robinson the head coach so we don't lose him to somebody. I mean, I know there was that like ridiculous rumor that like Oklahoma State was going to hire him. That wasn't going to happen. First of all, I don't think Robinson would have taken the job, but like, like I don't know why people think college head coaching jobs are better than NFL offensive coordinator jobs. But
yeah, it's never like my 2 football worlds seem to only collide like at the worst possible times. Like Zach Robinson is like the bright spot in that for me. And so like, of course, all these yahoos who've not talked about, know nothing about Zach Robinson, suddenly an offensive coordinator in the middle of preparing for this week's game is about to take a call. Like that's Bobby Petrino behavior. All right. No respectful professionals doing that. And yeah, man, I'm sorry. Big Oklahoma State guy. No NFL OC wants to live on the road and become a recruiter and spend half their year playing this NIL portal. That sounds terrible. Like, I'm sorry. You're going from the height, the peak of the league, of the game, and you're bouncing because your alma mater called you. They could have called him these past 6-7 years if they wanted to, and they never did.
Yeah, exactly. Not likely to happen. But with with Robinson, it's like he's showing the signs that give you enough hope that you're hoping that these things kind of come along. And I think again, like a lot more like formation and personnel flexibility this week. We saw 22, we saw 21, we saw 11, we saw 12. Like they were more willing to mix it up personnel wise than they have been in most weeks. And I think they're finally realizing like we really don't need to just run 11. Like maybe we could like occasionally run some other stuff, if it makes sense. Same thing defensively. We saw some dime. We saw some dime on Sunday. It's like almost unheard of for this team. And I wish I could say the results were better, but like on the whole, like I think even with Jimmy Lake, too, like they are making some changes schematically that I think are beneficial. They're making offensive schematic changes that are beneficial, but like the issue we just keep coming back to is like it doesn't matter offensively like how good everything is schemed up if the players don't execute. And the one player that has to execute to have any sort of offensive success is the quarterback. You can get away with the running back not executing sometimes, or like the receiver falling down on a route, or whatever, top pitch dropping passes, whatever. Like you can survive that, but like you can't survive that stuff, which is going to happen, and the quarterback just being an anchor dragging your offense down. And that's unfortunately where we are with Kirk at this point. And yeah, it's a sad reality, unfortunately. Like and given his age, like I'm not really sure that we should expect a significant turnaround. I mean, like I most of his issues seem to be mental, so it's like that should be fixable. But like, why are these issues showing up after the bye week? Like you had extra time to prepare and reset your mentals and get right, and you come out and have two of your your two worst games of the season. I mean, or close to it. So like I don't know if he's like in his own head. I don't know if the physical decline is like making him hesitant. I don't know what else is going on.
Yeah.
I also think that like, Raheem is a player's coach, and I'm sure promises were made to Kirk that they weren't going to bench him. Like this is not reported. This is pure speculation on my part. I'm guessing there were probably some spoken words about like after Penix was picked, everyone's trying to cool the room. Like don't worry, Kirk, we're not going to bench you for Michael Penix. Like this is not in our plans right now. This is the NFL. Things change, man. Like. Like you can't just be like, well, we said, but when they made that promise, they were expecting Kirk to be playing at like a top 15 level, and he's not played at that level in over 4 weeks. And I think, even to start the year, like outside of those Bucs games and that Cowboys game, he hasn't played like a top 15 quarterback at all. I mean, maybe one drive against the Eagles, he looked like a number 1 overall quarterback on that drive. But like you look at his body of work this year. A lot of people, I know a lot of fans, a lot of pro Kirk media are like, well, look at his body of work. Like, statistically, he's still doing good. Like, he had 500 yards in a game. Like, he had 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, we can't bench this man. It's like, if you look at his body of work, like you have to look at the whole body. You can't just look at the good games. Like, you have to look at all the bad games that are mixed in there, and there's a lot of them. He's only not turned the ball over in like 1 game this year, if you count fumbles too, I believe. I think he's not thrown touchdowns, I think, in quite a few games this year. So it just, it keeps coming back to Kirk. Like, like we keep trying to get off Kirk, and I just keep going back because it's like, I don't know what else to do. Like the run game is getting going. You're able to run the ball effectively, like 150 yards against the NFL's best run defense. Like you're getting great plays after the catch from Ray McLeod. Darnell Mooney's cooking people downfield. The offensive line has their best game of the season pass protecting. Bijan's looking like an elite pass blocker. I mean, this dude's just out there crushing folks. All this stuff is happening, and you put up 21 points. And it's like, where else do we go from here? Like, it frustrates me. I know it frustrates you too.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And It is kind of, the only way to go from here, I guess, is just ride it. Like we're gonna just ride it out and see with Kirk, which is just like a very uninspiring kind of like, reality, I guess. But I think that we're really just kind of at this point now where it feels like this was, like you said, uh, Terry Fondue and Raheem, after this whole Penix thing and everything went down, made a statement saying like, well, you know what, we've got 2 to 3 years of good QB play, and then we have more good years of QB play after that. That's a problem we can live with. And it's like, buddy, reality just set in. And maybe they had already known, or maybe it was always a 1-year plan. Who knows at this point? But it's clear that whatever the original plan was for this year is not what's transpiring. And whatever the plan was for next year, boy, I hope that's already been put in the shredder, because like you said, 36-year-olds 36-year-olds unfortunately do not continue to age gracefully. Especially when you're a professional athlete. The decline is already set in. And I think Kirk, I think Kirk physically can still do enough. Like the throws that he's missed, it's like they're throws that he can make. And I think that's what makes them extra frustrating. It's like he's just simply missing these shots. And so we haven't really seen the full physical decline set in, but that is on the way. And like I get it. Like the defense yesterday, the secondary, they did play bad. And it wasn't a great showing, but like again, the Falcons had 4 sacks. In the last 2 weeks, the Falcons have had 9 sacks. They've almost doubled their season total from the first 11 games. They had 10 sacks, and they've got 9 sacks in the last 2, which is like just absurd. I do think that like, they don't need to reel Jesse Bates in. Jesse Bates does need to reel himself in. He is big play hunting, and he's like looking and thirsty for a pick six. And like they caught him twice yesterday. The Alford belly flop, where he's gosh man, that is just like,
that's probably the most embarrassing coverage I've ever seen.
Seeing that camera pan, and then you're just like, wait, where's the oh no? And Justin Jefferson just like walks backward into the end zone. Alfred was supposed to carry. Bates was definitely supposed to be over the top of that. It's a fire zone concept. That the first time they got somebody on it, was the Mike Hughes play. And to Mike Hughes' defense, he actually did it right. They ran again, and in my opinion, it's another fire zone concept. And so that corner's supposed to carry with that deep route. Hughes carries. When you look at Bates on that play, it's like the same thing that happened on the touchdown to Jefferson, except this time he gets like sucked in by the play action. It's a first down. There's a fullback on the field, but you're a safety, Jesse. Your safety. And I get it. He's had to make some crazy plays, and he probably feels the pressure of needing to do it. But like yesterday, we just needed guys to do their job against that wide receiver group, because that is a very good group of wide receivers, and you saw them bully the Falcons, and it got bad. AJ Terrell had a great day.
Yeah.
AJ Terrell had probably one of his best days ever. It got to the point that AJ was playing so good. On the second Jordan Addison touchdown, AJ follows Jefferson inside, something the Falcons never do. They just pass that off. And so that would have normally gotten passed off to D. Alford. And they're like, no, we're not doing that. Alford's had a rough day. AJ takes that route, completely blankets Jefferson. Alford looks like he either didn't see the snap or was late on the snap, reacts very late, immediately gets put on his heels, and Addison just zooms right by on the out route for the touchdown. So, like, yes, the defense had issues, but like we said earlier, when you look at like 2 of those big plays, one, Sam Darnold's arm gets hit ever so perfectly so that the ball angle just drops right into Addison's hand.
That one looked a lot worse than it was. Yeah.
That was a pick. Hughes was going to pick that off, and the angle, like the ball just like, that's just one of the luckiest plays you'll get. And the other time, Darnold ran around the field and then gets the ball. So it's like, hey, man, like, yeah, there's issues, but at the same time, it's like the defense is managing 3 turnovers, the Ray turnover, 2 Kirk INT. So it's like, everybody's got issues. Everybody let each other down in some form or fashion yesterday. But it all comes back to the quarterback. And that's how this game has always worked. That's why they get paid what they get paid. That's why they're the face of the team, face of the franchise, and why you spend all this time and money investing and looking to find one. And we're not seeing, I think, at this point, the coaching staff uphold that person who's starting to the standard that they should be held to, because it is different from the rest of the team. And they are supposed to take on a lot more of the pressure, but Morris is doing his best to shield Kirk from all of that. And he's, again, like we're saying, he's out here saying Kirk's the guy. It's going to stay the guy. He's earned the right. And again, I just don't like seeing things like that, because you can simply say, Kirk is our guy. He's been in a rough patch, but we're going to see it through with him, and we're going to finish this season, blah, 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 blah. You can hit the coach speech in a much more realistic way. What we're seeing now is like fairy tales.
Yeah. It's discouraging for fans too. Like, it just feels like there's no, like, when fans get to the point like we're getting now where it feels like there's nothing Kirk could do to be benched, that's not good. Like, there has to be a line that he could cross. And also, like, the other side of the coin is, like, maybe they're just completely unprepared to get Penix on the field. Like, maybe they really haven't done their due diligence to prepare him. Maybe they've really not given him any reps whatsoever, and they're like, well, we can't put him on the field. We feel like he's going to look bad, and that'll look even worse for us if we put him out here and he looks bad. Which is also problematic. Like, he should be ready to step in. He's your backup quarterback. But it just doesn't feel like there's really anything interesting at all about this team. It feels like they've already, like, everything's already decided. Like, they're gonna ride it out with Kirk no matter what. It doesn't matter what happens. It's Kirk Cousins' show. There's no hope that we're gonna see Michael Penix, so fans don't even need to bother watching. Like, what are we waiting for? Kirk to drag the corpse of this team to 9 wins, maybe, and maybe you can get lucky and get ahead of the Bucs at the very end or something like that. But it just, there's nothing interesting left about this team. I mean, there certainly was, and there's going to be a lot of, the national media is starting to call for Penix to start. Like, and when that happens,
it's never good when Mina Kimes turns on you, buddy.
Yeah. The fact that, like, I mean, we were calling for it last week, and that was clearly early compared to the national media, but the national media is now calling for Kirk to be benched because it's like, this team is still in position to win this division. They just need a spark. And it's like, nope, we didn't even consider it. He comes out Monday morning, we're going with Kirk. Like, there wasn't even consideration, or not, at least not serious consideration. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about this staff, man. They are not willing. I mean, I think Raheem is not willing. I'm honestly curious. Like, I would love to be a fly on the wall. And I want to know if, like, Zach is, like, are you going to give me a quarterback that could execute this? I built this whole offense. We got all these pieces. Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, just begging to get the ball on these deep shots. And Kirk just won't throw it most of the time. And half the time it's not even on target. Like I wonder if Zach is really hoping to get Penix on the field. By all accounts, he was one of the biggest arguers in favor of drafting Michael Penix. So to me, it's like is Zach calling for Penix and Raheem's like, no? Like, this is pure speculation, folks. Like, but a part of me wonders, like, if Zach is starting to get frustrated because he's like, Kirk's not executing. We have this guy that we picked out to run this offense just sitting there waiting. Like, why shouldn't we, like, see what he can do? Like, and obviously there's all the future focus reasons to do that as well. Like, maybe we should give Penix some reps. Maybe we should see how he looks like to close out the season so that he doesn't have to go into next year just completely untested and without any real NFL starts under his belt. Like, there's a lot of reasons to go to Michael Penix. There's really not that many to stick with Kirk Cousins at this point. Like, other than trying to cover your ass from the financial angle, but like, the money's gone. Like, whether Kirk plays another down for this team or not, the money's gone. It doesn't matter. Like, that deal, I think we know that deal is going to go down as a terrible contract. And they just have to grow up and accept that they made a mistake with that contract. They made a mistake by double dipping on quarterback. It was a very tough needle to thread. I think it was pretty foolish to attempt it. And I think that all the people that were questioning why the hell you got 2 quarterbacks and set yourself up in this difficult situation are going to be vindicated because this is not going to work. But again, if Michael Penix comes on the field and is really good, then ultimately it doesn't really matter that much. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to eat this money. It's going to be kind of shitty next year because of that. But you got your quarterback, so who cares? But if you finish out the year with Kirk and he continues to look mediocre at best, you're not doing yourself any favors. Like, everyone's going to be like, what do we have? Do we have a quarterback? We don't even know if Michael Penix is good. Like, we didn't even get to see him because you were so insistent on playing Kirk Cousins. So, I just don't, this Raheem doesn't seem to have the boldness that's needed. Like, sometimes you have to make tough calls like this. Sometimes you have to risk the relationship with the veteran because you need to win football games. And if you win football games, like, it doesn't matter, right? And it's like, I know everyone's like, publicly, all the players are like, oh, we stand behind Kirk. I guarantee you there's a bunch of guys that are questioning what's going on. You
want to know the state of a football team? Look at who they make available to the media. You know who was available to the media today? Nate Landman. That kind of says everything in terms of like the vibes in the locker room.
Nate Landman, consummate professional. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, they really sent Nate up there just like to fall on the sword. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's gonna take some like crazy fan in Las Vegas taking matters into their own hands or something to like get some movement going. I honestly don't know at this point. Yeah. But we're just gonna have to wait and see. We're gonna have to wait and see on whether or not they can get these. I don't know. I guess you're playing for 10 wins at this point, and like there's a chance that like that doesn't do it for you. So you're also playing and hoping other people lose. It's just like the worst place to be as a team, especially when you controlled your destiny the entire time and had a very comfortable lead on your opponents. So it's it's just not the way you wanted it to go.
No, definitely not. So sad state of affairs here in Atlanta. This team's sinking fast, and I think one of the biggest ways they could have floated back up to the surface was to drop all that dead weight at the quarterback position, but doesn't seem like they're willing to do that. So we're going to be rolling with Kirk Cousins once again against the Raiders. If he has a bad game against the Raiders, it's over, right? Like, like there's no more excuses, right? I mean, if he throws like 3 picks against the Raiders, like, I mean, we have to be done then, right? Like, that has to be the last straw. But
can't lose to Antonio Pierce, man.
No.
Like even for like Raheem, I'm just like, there's no way you can lose because this is one of like the worst coached teams in the league right now. Like, this is a like just horrific football team. So yeah.
Yep. So we'll be on Desmond Ridder revenge game watch. God, that would just be just Desmond Ridder defeating Kirk Cousins head to head. That would be really something. That would be really something.
Oh, sure would.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna file that nightmare away for later. But file that nightmare away for Monday Night Football. The league chose to leave this out there. I'm wondering if it's because it's Vegas. Like they want that to be that destination for people to go watch football games. I know you're going to watch the football game. I wonder, because it's like, wow, why would you leave this game on Monday Night Football? I can't believe you wouldn't flex it. But I wonder if it's because they're really trying to hype up like Vegas for football games, and they didn't want to like strand anybody or ruin anybody's tickets. So that I'm curious about that, because I don't think the quality of the game is worthy of the primetime slot. But
yeah, and there's like some pretty good games this week. So was kind of surprised we didn't see the flex they had I think it was until Tuesday last week to make that decision on the flex. They didn't go that way. Yeah, I mean, I think you've got Bills Lions this week playing at like 125. Was shocked that didn't get flexed because the other Monday night game is Bears Vikings, and so the Vikings are really good, obviously. Bears are kind of like a dumpster fire, but that pulls in ratings. So I don't know. You had Steelers Eagles as well. There were some good options this week, and they stuck with us. So yeah, I was kind of hoping that they would free up my Monday night, maybe move it to Sunday, but that's okay. I'll be there still.
Yeah, no, we'll hope that it's at least a big dub for you, Tre'Shon. You could at least enjoy that, but I don't know. I guess like having to witness, the Desmond Ritter revenge game, victory
I was the
for
biggest
Desmond
fan.
Ritter. Yeah. I mean, that also, there could certainly be something to that, and by something I mean, just terrible vibes. But this team has terrible vibes around it, so I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think we can rule out anything with this team at this point. But Tre'Shon, a lot to cover this week. I think we got through it as best we can. Hopefully at some point they will right the ship, as Raheem Morris said. Although I think we disagree that Kirk Cousins did sink the ship, so maybe it's only right that he should be the one to pull it back up from the bottom of the ocean. But pulling ships up from the bottom of the ocean is a lot harder than getting them down there. If you've ever tried to do maritime salvage, which I have not, for the record, but I've heard that's something I've heard over the years. So I think it will be difficult for Kirk Cousins to pull off that sort of salvage operation on this football team, but can't rule it out, I guess. But he's at Tre'Shon on the Twitters, at Tre'Shon on Blue Sky. Anything else you're working on, let people know about?
No. The Falcons have given me plenty to work on.
Yes, tons of stuff. So make sure to check out all the Tre'Shon stuff on thefalcoholic.com as that comes out this week. And guys, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. You can catch me there. I'm also Falcoholic Kevin on Blue Sky. Please like and subscribe. We do appreciate that. It helps us out. Leave a comment. We love to hear from you guys. If you haven't left us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, hit us with that as well. It helps the show grow on those platforms. Check out the Patreon if you want to support the show. Channel memberships on YouTube as well. We will be back Wednesday night with a very special guest, I believe. As long as everything, stays as planned, we will be joined by Michael Turner, the burner, on Wednesday on Falcoholic Live. So definitely check that out. Should be a fun show. I know Turner has started on Believe in Falcons, sister show over here on the Believe Podcast Network. And I know he has a lot of takes about the state of things, so I'm excited to dig into those. So definitely join us on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then, of course, we'll have game preview for you guys. And then next week, going to be a very quiet week. I will be traveling that week and trying to separate from these Falcons because they're starting to really piss me off. It kind of always happens about this time of year. It's kind of like clockwork, actually. But no, I just happened to have a long-standing trip that week. So probably do the Monday post-game, assuming everything works out with my technology on the road. And then probably won't have a show the rest of that week. Maybe something later in the week. But otherwise, we'll be back for the following post-game show on Sunday, and we'll go from there. But next week will probably be a lighter week, just to give you guys a heads up on that. But in the meantime, enjoy this show. Enjoy Michael the Burner Turner on Wednesday, and we will see you guys then. Thanks again for watching the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Thanks to Bet Online for sponsoring today's episode. We will see you guys next time. Have a great day, folks.